In this video, we're going to talk about the 1/12 scale Hunter Battle Tank by Ramen Toy. We'll do an overview of this tracked armored toy, look at the scale and what it might be good for, do a comparison to other 1/12 vehicles like the Hiss, the Vanguard, and the Vamp, and then discuss why I'm interested in it. Back in March, Ramen Toy posted a picture of a prototype tank. It was in 1/12 scale and it was in this yellow plastic, definitely looked like a prototype, but it was really exciting because they talked about it being part of their sort of armored vehicle system. And what became obvious about that system was it was going to use the same chassis. You can see here they did a sort of a G.I. Joe Bridgelayer, and I think everybody loved the Bridgelayer when they were a kid. You know, just an easy, cool way to get tanks and troops across, any kind of pits in your yard or anything. And it looked really good. Their mock-ups, used the tank chassis. It looked like the tracks were separate and would move. And the bridge looked really strong and detailed, and it just looked really nice. It looked like functional, looked beefy enough to actually hold like a tank or other vehicles like a Vamp or a Vanguard or something else. And they also hinted at, maybe doing a driver for the vehicle, which would be kind of cool. Then they showed the kind of Wolverine attachments, so that would be like a rocket launcher that would go in the back. They showed the interior, which was kind of nice to see that there were like 2 seats in there, and there was an actual interior, which is not something you had on the G.I. Joe vehicles where you just kind of slip the guys in. And, it looked like working hatches. And then here Ramen Toy was showing off how the rocket launchers worked. They rotate, they pivot, all the rockets come out. And then they've got these cool kind of blast effects, in the kind of translucent plastic. The last one was the tank, the main battle tank. So kind of like the Mobat, but this definitely looked like a new version of a tank, a more modern tank. And you could see kind of the back feels like the Mobat, with the grill work, the way the engine looked there. But it definitely feels like the Abrams X. You could see it's almost a copy of it, the turret, and some of the sensors and things on the roof. Here's a more detailed kind of version of that on this model kit. But this was awesome that they showed that it's got moving suspension for all the wheels and the tracks roll, and you can see the teeth in there. So this had me excited because I've taken a bunch of my G.I. Joe vehicles and made them remote control, like here, this Mauler. And it's just a matter of putting, motors in there and the electronics. But because the Mauler and, the Equalizer uses the Mauler chassis, they have rolling wheels and tracks. You can make them RC pretty easily. And so I've been eyeing, like these hang-long 1/16 scale Abramses for a while. But they don't fit the 1/18 scale figures, and they don't fit the 1/12 scale figures either. This has me excited as a chance to maybe do something here. They also, showed some stickers that they're doing, and then kind of the Cobra version of this tank. So just a totally different colorway, but also a different turret. Exact same chassis though, which is smart. They're using that. So this is kind of like the Crimson attack tank that, was released for Cobra. And here you can see they actually put 2 hatches on that turret, which I think is really smart. Then they were showing off some magnetic pieces you could put on, and then some cool fire effects for the kind of futuristic, whatever it was, like laser effects that shoot from that tank. Now, one thing a lot of us noticed when we first saw this tank was the scale of it. It's a little small, and Ramen Toy was smart to kind of call that out, that they intentionally made it smaller just because it's a toy. They wanted to think about, shipping costs and where people would display these and how big that might be. And if, you look back at some of the G.I. Joe toys, definitely the Wolverine is really tiny. So is the Mobat, the Bridgelayer. They're definitely not in real world 1/18 scale. The Mauler is probably the biggest tank, and even that's like kind of small. Here you can see Beachhead's almost as tall as the Mobat. But, someone did a great job of putting this image together with some classified figures and a 1/16 hang-long tank. And you can see there that CoverGirl's almost as tall as the tank, which really isn't accurate. And if you look at the Ramen Toy mock-up, you can see that that figure is a bit too large for the tank. But, we can think about, like, okay, there's also the T-80 versus an Abrams, which is much shorter and a much smaller tank. Then here, I kind of put the Cobra-ish kind of Ramen tank next to an Abrams, and you can see it's smaller. The turret's a bit smaller, but I think it still works. I think for display purposes, it still looks really good. And then I think this is the best kind of way to look at it, in actual 3 dimensions where, Ramen Toy is kind of showing this off, moving it around. And that figure, that 1/12 scale figure, looks pretty good in this. It definitely looks bigger than a 1/16 kind of Henlong tank. Definitely feels bigger. And these characters look pretty good in there. I really like, again, the 2 hatches because you've got 2 figures interacting. They're kind of sticking out a little bit high. You'd think they might be a little bit lower unless they're manning something, but that looks really cool. I think the other turret is actually thicker than this kind of Cobra black kind of turret. That one looks a little thicker. But then look at the scale of this. I mean, how strong does that Bridgelayer kind of support piece look? I think so many of those broke on the original toy. And then, the bridge itself, that looks like you could walk on it or, ride a bike across it. Yeah, and after seeing these images, I'm sold. I think they did a great job of compromising, realistic scale and gigantic tank versus a tank you could fit on a shelf and you could ship and, still looks really good. And, yeah, I'm just really, really stoked to get one of these. And so overall size is important to me. Where am I going to display it? Will it fit in my display cabinet, with the other vamps? Or am I going to have to put it on the shelf with the other vehicles? And will it even fit there? And how many spots is it going to take up? Could I have like 4 maulers up there to, replace this ramen tank? Or, does it get relegated to the basement and one of the other shelves down there? And even then, it's taking up some room. So something that I really like to consider. And then there's the toy photography or filming it. Does it fit in a frame? Is it too big to kind of, put a backdrop behind and get a good shot of it? Or am I going to be able to have to pull back too far and see the laundry baskets and the couch in the background? All right, so let's look at some other 1/12 scale vehicles. So we got the HasLab Hiss tank, a nice tank tracked vehicle, moving tracks, rolling wheels. It's got electronics. It can fit, a driver, a gunner, and then a figure in the back. You probably stuff 2 back there. And it's got a lot of add-ons, rocket launchers and, the lights and stuff that come with it. And, just lots of really nice detail. It feels like a really, premium kind of vehicle at $300. Then we've got the Valaverse Vanguard based on the Rezvani tank. A really cool real-world kind of design. This thing just, wants to be loaded with a lot of figures. It wants to, just be displayed in a way that, guys are hanging off, shooting. It's got the winch going. It's got the gunner on top, with the turret or the rocket launcher. It's got the fire effects and, comes with the driver. Just really cool, cool vehicle at $185. And you've got the Vamp, which is a much smaller vehicle, fits 2 guys, but then you can have, a couple hanging off the side. You can see it's smaller next to the Hiss and the Vanguard. The interior details are nice, just like the Hiss tank. You can open the engine, and it's got a lot of like different pieces that are glued or snapped on to make it feel more detailed and, like more high end. And then, it's got these like add-on packs you can get third party, separately. So $100 for the base model there. So I thought I'd just like talk about these real quick. If you're a G.I. Joe fan, you're definitely in for the Vamp and the Hiss. If you're really into displaying 1/12 scale, I think the Vanguard is probably the best bet for you because it's cheaper than, like the Hiss tank. It's about the same price as the Ramen tank, but you can fit like 6+ guys, 8 guys on that. And it's just got so much potential to be modded and just, like set up in a diorama. The tank, though, I like because, I just kind of want to get a tracked vehicle. I think the problem with it is sort of what I think makes the Vanguard great is, being able to display a lot of figures. You've only got the 1 hatch. So really, you're only displaying 1 figure and taking up a lot of space. So that's the one thing that kind of has me, thinking I'm going to have to mod this a lot to get it to kind of look like and do what I want it to do. So all that being said, I think the price is good, the size is good for this, all the features are pretty good. I really like modding my vehicles, as I've mentioned before, and if you've seen the channel, I like to make stuff RC. And I have a bit of experience with that, so I'm kind of looking at this as sort of like a shell that I could work with. This is a Tamiya flak mauler that my friend Joe Mahler sent to me, and it was empty inside, but it was just a matter of like adding some motors and some of the electronics and getting a rolling chassis. And I think it'd be pretty easy to get that going with the ramen tank. Now I could add more stuff. You could add like some servos, so you could get some elevation going on the main gun. Also get some motors going in there so you could rotate the turret, and that would be pretty cool. Not sure if I'd want to go that far, at least at first. Also, some detail. I think it needs a bit more detail at that scale. I mean, this is a large vehicle, so, looking at the vamp and stuff, you'd want to do that. And also, just looking at these pictures, I'd want to have a lot of more figures kind of displayed on it. So, would they ride on the back? Maybe cutting some holes and adding some more hatches for a driver or some people down in the hull. And then, too, I've made my own custom turrets in the past, so it'd be kind of fun to make a turret that would just pop onto this one and just replace that kind of Abrams X looking turret, and get one with, a couple more hatches in it, so I could have figures up there, maybe some baskets, so I could put some backpacks and some more details on there, some antenna, some like different launchers for grenades and smoke and things like that. And then there's just how much detail do you put on this thing? Do you paint it? How nice a paint job do you do? Do you weather it? So, have to decide all that. But I just think this is a great offering. I'm so excited that Ramen Toy, that someone is making a big 1/12 scale armored vehicle. So I'm pretty set to make space for this. I think it's $180 if you get it during Joe Fest weekend, which seems like a good deal, especially it includes shipping, which this thing's going to be pretty big. Love to hear what other people think, and I hope you found this video interesting. Hope to see you in the next video, and yo, Joe.